Okay, so we should be live at this point. A recording. All right, okay. We'll get started. Okay, hello and welcome to our What's New webinar series. As mentioned in previous sessions, this is designed to summarize and take you through the changes that have been made to Colleague as part of our latest release. In this case, it's 24.05.03. We book out an hour for these sessions. In some webinars, that will be about right. In others, depending on the contents of these and ultimately the questions that are asked as well, we might finish a bit early. But if you'd like to ask any queries there, please do so via the Q&A area that's in this session. So Teams has a Q&A section. If you submit your questions there, if you could try and keep your queries relevant to the session, based on the new features that have been shown, that would be ideal. Any feedback obviously is welcome. The session is also being recorded as well, so subscribers to the What's New series will be sent over a copy of this session as a recording afterwards. Let's get started. So I'll start by just covering the basics. Ultimately, Monday evening. Normally it happens over the weekend, but we had a release Monday evening, which is for the 2503, 240503 release, which is this release here. So following the update, users would have received a notification to advise they've been upgraded with a link to the release notes, and also the releases are obviously available via the help file, where you can click on the question mark and it will advise the current release, and also have links to it here as well. But this is what we're going to roll through in this session. Basically, what was in the release, how did the system change, and yeah, effectively, please ask questions if I need to cover anything in greater detail. So I'll start with the option to parse and create a contact. This has been on my to-do list for quite some time as an item that we wanted to get added to the system. So previously, the option to parse a CV has always been present, top left-hand side. That's now been updated to say parse candidate CV, because beneath it, there's the option now to parse a contact. And that's to say that you can drag and drop a document that contains contact information into this area. It will trigger the parsing process and it will give you hopefully the details to then create a new contact record. To demonstrate this, it's probably best done using LinkedIn as the key example. So I'm going to register Precious here. So yeah, effectively, the way that this is done, when you're on a profile, if you go to the More option that you see there and you hit Save to PDF, that will save a kind of PDF profile version of that person's profile. And then from here, you can then drag and drop that over to parse contact. That triggers the parsing process. And then what you end up with is, effectively a similar parsing view that what you have with the candidate. So you have a preview of the file that you've used to parse. And obviously on the right-hand side will be information that has been found through the parsing process. You still have those options of selecting a record and using these items to sort of click buttons into there. Obviously you can make updates and change things as you need to on here. And yeah, effectively, the contact information will obviously be there. The skills information will be there, obviously depending on what information was in the document and what was found through the parsing process. But the options are there. Skills obviously will be skills referenced in the profile, and obviously custom fields, obviously for any custom fields that you have against the contact record. But if you're happy with the record, you can obviously hit register, or happy with the parse, you can hit register. If there are any duplicates, obviously those duplicates would be listed within here, plus that functionality of going to an existing record or attaching the document to the existing record of the contact. We've covered all that functionality, so it's all the same. But really, what you should be able to do is just hit register there, it registers the contact, and then it obviously will take you through into the contact record with that obviously record there registered. So that's the first item. In terms of the next one along is essentially the ability to switch table listing. So effectively what we've had for quite some time really, and this is when you're looking at quick search results, or when you're looking at recent items, or when you're looking at lists, you obviously see the records in a different way in comparison to, say, a selection screen search result, where you'll get a table of records with columns. In situations like the quick search and with recent items and with lists, it could be that you're looking at multiple different types of records. So you can't have a table in the same way because ultimately those columns are going to need to match up to a specific entity to show you the data from the record in relation to that type of entity record. So what you now have in recent items and in lists is the main one where this was requested really, but in recent items, for example, if you switch the record type to be a certain record type, so rather than all, if you switch it to be a specific record type, you'll see this option here called switch table view, and then you can click on that and it will switch the view from that listing to now be a table format. And the reason why that's obviously useful is it then introduces that ability to sort records by different fields, which ultimately, again, is another driving factor behind this. Obviously, people were asking for the ability to sort by certain fields. And again, if you see it within this area, you can't really have that functionality. So that's, again, why we've introduced this ability to switch to table. But in lists, obviously, they'd ask for extra columns as well that they'd like to be able to sort by in this area. But now, again, you'd switch up, you'd select your list, you'd switch up the record type, and then obviously you can just switch it to be that view and obviously sort and add columns and do whatever you want, again, using options as you'd expect. So that's the update that's happened there. At the moment, when it was first, as it's been rolled out, it requires you to actually, when you're selecting a record type, to click that button to trigger it. But there is also a user setting. So if I go to user settings and do a search for table here, so you've got an option that says automatically switch table view to lists of recent items and quick search when filtering entry type. So if I set that to yes, what that will mean is when I switch over to a view, so if I'm, for example, if I'm on this and I switch over to a candidate, it triggers the table view in the first instance. It doesn't require you to click that button. So that's if you have that kind of preference to view it in this way rather than viewing it as in this format. Good stuff. Okay, so that's that function. Next one along is attaching a document to a purchase order. Let me just check quickly if there's any questions that have come through. That's blank, so I'll keep going. Yeah, the next one along is attaching a document to a purchase order. Again, very common request. On a placement, ultimately, and also against a company, you can store purchase orders and ultimately store the information about the value of that purchase order, when it will expire, and the type of purchase order that it is, the currency it's associated to. But what we'd obviously have requests for is the ability for the associated document that may have been signed off as part of implementing that purchase order or providing that purchase order to be provided an option to be able to add it to this purchase order record. So the option is here called show documents. When you're on a purchase order, you click on that, and then you've got a section here for adding a document. So if I hit add new document and then I select example PO document there and hit upload, obviously a document can be uploaded now which is associated with this purchase order. You just hit save there and that saves it there. So yeah, the ability, it doesn't have to be one document as well. It can be multiple documents that you want to store against the purchase order. It can all be stored there. And again, that's against the company and against the placement. When you're on the purchase orders listing there, you've got that option now. Right, next one along is on the company, and that's a new and a contact for good measure. That's the new summary tab that we've have. So we've been in a gradual process over the course of many months, really, where we've been replacing the older style kind of dashboard displays to be in this more updated format. So that started obviously with some of the team overview work and the user overview work. We've rolled out summary tabs to the candidate record, the placement record, and now on the company record, we have this updated summary tab option as well. And obviously this works in the same sort of way as the others. Effectively, you have ability to drill down by user or by detail. So for example, if I wanted to look at the specific interviews that have happened against this company, click on that, and it will obviously list out those interviews as you'd expect. Likewise, current contractors and placements, pending offers, future interviews, and also the candidates that have been worked with that company as well, and have got obviously at various different stages. You can obviously see that detail too, and obviously see it on a by user perspective. So it obviously gives you an overview of how different users that have worked to get this company record and in what kind of volumes they've done that. So that's on the company summary tab, but then also there's the contact one as well, and that's ultimately the same summary. It's just that effectively you have it broken down or drilled down specifically to that contact record. So the detail is there, again, specific to this contact this time. You'd have parameters as well, where you can specify a specific date range in relation to the detail, either a bespoke date range or over the course of the last 12 months, this week, this month, this year. Okay, so the next one along is to do with social media links. So I'll close down a couple of tabs just to try and keep it succinct. So yeah, effectively, when you're creating new records in the system now, the option is there to add social media links as part of doing that. So what I'm saying that is, when you're on the candidate form, you will have the option here of entering in the social media links into here. And when we're talking about social media links, what we're saying is, the URL of someone's web page or someone's LinkedIn page, you could just paste that into there. And then as part of this record being created, it would create that social media link at the same time as part of doing that. This is obviously on the add new form. It's been added on the company form and on the contact form as well. Just the options have been added here, but they are enabled by a global setting in terms of putting that in place. That global setting, if I just go on to admin and global settings, what's social, here you go. So you've got always show social media fields when parsing or creating records. And if that's set to yes, then those fields will appear when you're creating those records. Likewise for the parser forms. So if we do that parse again, parse and candidate, obviously it will go through and parse that record, but on the contact tab, you'll also have those summary social media options as well on the contact tab. If you've set any to be mandatory, obviously the red asterisk would appear as you'd expect it to, but that's effectively that. Next one along is the daily planner. So the daily planner continues to be updated. We actually intend to update the daily planner, so effectively it has the same segment at the top there as the user overview has, with the name drop down, the range, and the date range that's being specified. But at the moment, as it stands, we've kind of progressed it along by introducing the name drop down now. So if you have access to other users, you can click on those other users, and obviously the details will pull through. So yeah, and obviously the range is there as well. But again, what you'll see is this evolve so that it will eventually become like this effectively when you're on the daily planner. So it'll give you that kind of full range of either bespoke date ranges or specific options that you have there. But yeah, the user drop down is there. Again, that's going to be based on permissions that you have. So the options are available in user group permissions against the kind of diary and tasks area. To specify whether you have the calendar and tasks area, to specify whether you have the ability to kind of view users view calendars and see that info. If you have, then obviously that info will be shown, or that name will be dropped sorry, in the drop down, the name will be present. But if that's set to no access, then obviously users without that won't be able to see that that user drop down. But that option is obviously now present in the data planner. Next one along is to do with no value options. So when you're doing let me just check if there's any questions. No, great, okay. So next one along is to do with no value. So you can obviously run searches in the system across multiple different fields, all the fields really ultimately that are held against these entity records. But on date fields, for example, and also drop-down lists, we added this option of no value a little while ago. So you're able to basically see if nothing has been added into that record. So it's one thing to see how many records that are at a certain status, but how many have no status at all. It's worthwhile, obviously, from a data maintenance perspective, having the ability to know what's missing. And likewise, if for skills, there's an option of searching on records that have got no skills allocated to their record. You want that ability to see what records are actually missing data. So what we've done in this sprint is for effectively all alphanumeric fields, there's now a no value option as well. So if you wanted to see all of the records in the system of a specific entity type, obviously, but that did not have an email address or did not have a maybe mobile number, the option is there to do that now, and obviously bring that through. Again, it's probably more of a tool to use for data maintenance perspectives, for obviously tidying up existing data in the system, but a helpful option all the same for users that have to sometimes go through that and assess which records are missing data and not. Next one along is to do with the API. So yeah, effectively, we've obviously got an API in place, and that's been there for some time, and obviously developers will integrate with that API. But there can be moments where there are queries regarding ultimately subscription key access, but also whether or not there's an issue with the API, whether or not there's a delay as requests are being called. So what we've done is basically built an API status test page, and that allows developers to be able to pass over their subscription key, pass over the user ID that they're using, and then run a quick check to see whether or not it gets a return. And obviously, if it brings back an error, then that's a valid demonstration that the API is either rejecting the subscription key or there's actually a failing currently, or some sort of restart that's occurring. It is also possible as well to kind of pre-code the URL, so it also contains the subscription key and a user ID, and that will again just you click the search there and it runs a quick scan against in this case the users directory, just to give you some a reading that it's read the database, brought back some information. So that's ultimately the addition of an API status page that we've added. It's available through the help file. It's also available on our main websites, and obviously for those third parties that use our API, we've sent out the links so then they know that obviously that's in place as well. Reporting wise, so a couple of or a few report updates that have been made. If I just jump over to reports, and we start with the consultant GP report. Ultimately, the consultant GP report is designed to give you the entitled commissions of users within a specified date range. But what we had as a request was ultimately ability to forecast that obviously based on existing placements that are in place. You obviously have a known placement value and margin that's associated with those placements. So you should be able to forecast ultimately on the basis that those timesheets are all submitted and everything plays out as expected. You should be able to forecast what those consultants are going to achieve from a commission status perspective. So yeah, on the consultant GP report now we've got these additional tabs that have been added, and the parameters have also been updated as well. So I've got obviously a fairly wider date range with this report, but you have this option here of being able to forecast a number of months into the future, and I've set that to 12. But what that effectively means is obviously you get the existing commission based on the date range that was entered. You obviously get the entitled commission for the specified users. Obviously, in this case, I've done it for a load of users on the system, but it could be specifically for a user. But then you also at the same time get a forecast from that consultant's perspective, moving into the future. If I filter on maybe just my own forecast on this demo system, you can see that I've obviously got the commissions that are set out over the course of this entire kind of date range forecasted forward. The commissions that I'll get through each month, they've kind of been laid out there month after month against all the different placements. I've obviously got a lot of placements on this system against me, but yeah, effectively it gives you an overview of that information from a consultant perspective, or from an all users perspective, or literally list it out all. And obviously you have the ability to export that into Excel, which obviously has great value. There's a chart as well, so if you wanted to forecast it from a specific user's perspective from a chart, then obviously the option is there to do that. And then there's a company one as well, again, which gives you an ability to forecast from a company perspective on revenues. So the consultant GP report has been updated quite significantly with more functions and abilities to forecast against it, which hopefully is useful. Next one along is the new finishers user overview dial. So I'll go back to the home page. So yeah, effectively this is sort of a fairly minor update, but obviously when we implemented the new user overview, the benefit of the user overview is obviously it allows for this range element to be set up, so you can specify the stats for this month, this week, this year. You have that kind of flexibility to change around the range related to the panel. But when it comes to finishers, realistically, if you set it to this or last week or this week, it would give the finishers panel would give you the finishers of this week, and that's not necessarily as helpful as a panel which is literally hard coded to give you finishers over the next 4 weeks, and that was ultimately requested from us to be able to kind of reintroduce that function. So there is a finishers panel now which is literally hard coded to be just for the next 4 weeks, and you'll see it in the dial listing or the panel listing in user overview. If you type in finish, it gives you the different finish options, and this one is what was added there, finishers the next 4 weeks, and that's what you're looking at when you see that on the home page here. So if you want that kind of set back to being fixed over the course of the next 4 weeks, you can obviously just change that finishers panel around. In terms of consultant activity reporting and the breakdown of permanent and contract, this effectively our placement overview before was more about just giving you the numbers in terms of placements in general, whereas obviously what we tend to find is clients want to know about the placement stats for contract, the placement stats for permanence. So there's now this breakdown where you can literally click on based on it being contract or it being perm, you have that kind of ability to differentiate between the two now by these different options that have been added in. So it will give you the same stats, but now you'll have a contract or perm option in brackets afterwards. And contract obviously covers contracts, rolling contracts, and fixed term as well, whereas perm is permanent basically. Right, okay. Next one is to do with the portal. So the portal continues to be updated. If I log into the portal here, so the portal continues to be modified sprint after sprint with feedback, and also just how we want to progress it. We are working on the UI to bring it in line with the new UI, and that will be available soon. But effectively what we've added in this sprint is around timesheet expenses. So yeah, effectively against the candidate portal in particular, you can select the placement. The contractor that is can obviously select the placement that they're working and add timesheets as you'd expect. But they can also add timesheet expenses as well. They can also add an expense. So there's the kind of three different functions here. So there's a timesheet that can be added. There's the expense which is specific to that timesheet, which is called a timesheet expense. And then there's just an expense, which is just a generic expense that's associated to the placement. But there was an issue before in that effectively someone could add a timesheet expense but not then really see it against the timesheet. It was just added in the background, whereas now we've added that option so you can view timesheet expenses that have been submitted there. So that's just the next kind of iteration. But yeah, more updates will continue to follow with regards to the portal, and that includes obviously bug fixes and tweaks that we make in that regard also. So I'm now moving into kind of minor UI tweaks. These are just, well, I say just, there's some useful stuff in here. But yeah, effectively these are less about building in, new enhancement functionality and more about just sort of tidying up, but some minor options as well that have been added, which can help. Firstly, if I just quickly jump over and check for any questions. Great, okay. Right, so yeah, in terms of tooltips, so if I jump over to I'll go to a candidate record. Or a contact record for that matter. Now I'll choose. Let's go to that one. There we go. So yeah, effectively, when you're on a candidate record, we try to update the tooltips to be in a new format. Obviously, from a history perspective, they were updated a while ago, so that when you moused over a history item, it would give you a sort of more improved UI experience ultimately when you're sort of mousing over it. But yeah, effectively what we've done with the got another tooltip here is we've got just a slightly more easier on the eye tooltip than what was there before, which was sort of text with a black background. And we've done that in several different areas where there's tooltips that that if there's a bit of information to be said about that workflow, the tooltip is just improved slightly to sort of give you some more information. Maybe if I use placement, so unauthorized placement here. If I go to say early finish this tooltip, for example, extend this tooltip, the tooltips where they've got quite a fair bit to say about what that functionality is doing, they've been updated to just be a little bit more easier on the eye. Next one along is the open and download option from the search. So this is, if I go over to a search now, and I'll just bring up some records, and if you want to obviously view those records, you've got view documents to select. So what we've added in is this option that you can now see here. So if it's like a docx file, for example, then it's a kind of download option. So ultimately, you have the ability to view a preview of the file, but if you want to look at the file in greater detail and physically open it, you now have a means to do that. If you're looking at and I want to find a PDF. There we go. If you're looking at a PDF, that changes to be an open document. So if I clicked on that, it would sort of open the file into a new tab. If it's a PDF file, or likewise an image, for example, it would just open up into a new file. But if it was a docx file, it switches to become download. You click on that, and obviously downloads the file to view in that way. But that's the addition that's been added there. So when you're scrolling through documents, against records. Obviously, you have the preview of the file, but if you want to, drill down into that file in greater detail or look at that file, you can download it now. So that's the option that's there. Multi-line address feature. So there's some work that we have lined up over the coming months to do with addresses, which should be pretty good. But yeah, effectively, in the scenario where you're creating records, if you had an address that was on multiple lines, the option is there to paste that into the top address, hit tab, and then it will paste the address into the different address fields, and that's the same for company as well. Again, you just have that option there to put that in there, and then just tab there, and obviously that puts those in there. But we're working on an address finder, so you could just type in a postcode. There'll be more to follow on that, and I'll give you a drop down. But yeah, that's another update that's coming. List invoices area having a right-click option, so that's worthwhile mentioning. If I go to list invoices, this is the back office area of the system, and I'm probably going to need to go back a bit to give me some invoices. But yeah, what you have now is a right-click menu, and that's effectively gives you the same options that you see in the toolbar. But yeah, effectively just to give you that same kind of experience of right-click, create document, for example. And doing that rather than having to go to the toolbar, especially if you're having to scroll through and you sort of focusing on further down in the page. Obviously, options to right click and run workflow kind of help, and obviously they'll scroll to top as well when they need to for some of that workflow. Refresh icon on the requirements candidates tab is another update. So we've made updates to the and I'll go to a requirement just to demonstrate this. But yeah, effectively, we've made updates to the manner in which when CVs are sent, how that can be done. And ultimately, it's possible to attach, or should I say, long list candidates to requirements from the candidate record. So that can sometimes mean that if you have the requirement open, the candidates that are being listed here and the date and the info that be listed there might need a refresh if there's other stuff that's just happened there. It's not going to update specifically real time. If you've had the tab open, you need to trigger something. So what we wanted to do is just add an option here, so you can click that and it will just refresh the candidates. That's if you've if you've sent a CV through the add-in, for example. So if you've gone through this process where you've use the spec CV or the attached document. If you run the workflow through here to attach a CV associated to a requirement and sent it off, this option will obviously help refresh that sent column, for example. Or if you've obviously long listed a candidate to a requirement and you've still got the requirement open, again, it will just help you refresh that. So that's just a minor update, but again, just helpful for the user. Back to top has been added to records. That's quite a minor thing, but go to a candidate, for example. But yeah, effectively, when you're on a candidate record, if you scroll down, you'll now be back to top. Likewise, in this custom fields, well, it only gets activated if the scroll bar has to go down a certain way. It doesn't obviously appear if there's little there in terms of custom field data. But if you're scrolling down, obviously back to top is triggered, and obviously you can just use that to hit back to top. The list name has been updated. So yeah, effectively, if you're creating a new list, either through this workflow or from the lists page, but ultimately the add to list option used to be limited to 30 characters in terms of the name of the list that you could give, whereas Dave example, whereas yeah, effectively now it supports a lot more in terms of characters, 255 to be exact. So yeah, effectively your list can be as long as you need it to be from a text perspective. And date offer rejected is just a thing that's happened in the background. So if a candidate is rejected, yeah, effectively the requirement candidates record in the background has that offer rejected date stamped to their record. That's really for reporting that update's been done. So that's just something that will happen in the background. Don't tend to go through bug fixes when we're doing the what's new section. Ultimately, these aren't really. I suppose it's new that they've been fixed, but it's not necessarily something that we're going to demo in terms of this is now working, because it should have always worked. So ultimately, the bug fixing that you see here has been applied as part of this update. So obviously scroll through that as you need to obviously see those changes. So that covers the release, and I'll jump back over to here. And there are no questions. Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much for your time. As I say, this is a recorded session, so we'll send out the recording to all those to all those subscribers, and we'll probably post it up on social media as well. So thank you very much for your time, but we'll end the session there. Take care, all the best. Cheers. Bye bye.